G'day and welcome to this Australian Open Live. We tell stories and our story is tennis, and the Australian Open 2023 is up and running, and wouldn't you believe it, we've already reached the end of the first week and we're into the last 16 already for the men's and the women's, we'll be running through a little bit of a brief wrap-up of week one, heading into a preview of week two, and we're going to keep it nice and simple. We're just going to focus on a couple of key matches of week one, just some comments. We're not going to get too much into the stats in this particular episode. In the preview, we've picked out one key match to kick off week two, and we also want to just say g'day to the new subscribers who've joined us. Thank you, and hang around after this intro, and also we'll just give you a little bit of an outline about this particular episode. And if you're on the podcast, hope you're enjoying the listening, and thanks also for your patronage. G'day, welcome back to this Australian Open Life, and it's that time of year again. Summer in Melbourne means a summer of tennis, and we've got plenty of sights, sounds and summer of tennis captured at the Australian Open. And just a little note about the footage for those of you watching on our platform. Just some footage from last year's Australian Open around the Australian Open precinct, inside and out, and also you might notice some of the footage being for the night of the WTA women's final, the lead up to Ash Barty's match that she won that historic title last year. And if you thought that was a surprise, about 3 days later she said, "I'm retiring," and it was only last week she announced she's having her first baby. So well done, Ash, well done you, and doesn't time move quickly, and don't things march very fast in the world of professional athletes, because last night Iga Swiatek was knocked out, the current number one on the WTA tour. It's not easy being Ash, and that's been some of the commentary around the traps in the tennis media. Who is going to step up to the plate and dominate women's tennis from now on? Raducanu got knocked out, of course, quite early on. And so we've decided just to have a chat about one particular match during week one of the Australian Open 2023. And you guessed it, we're going to have a bit of a chat about one of our favourite players, classy Thanasi Kokkinakis. He was left hanging in the doubles, the human headline. Box office Nick Kyrgios not only pulled out of the United Cup in Sydney and left all his teammates swinging in the breeze. They weren't impressed, and then he came down to Melbourne, managed to show up for a practice match, a tennis match that had the broadcasters licking their lips. Nick Kyrgios, I wonder how much coin he made out of his practice match, televised practice match with the Djoker, and then, wouldn't you know it, pulled out of the Australian Open with a sore knee, which just reminds me of poor old Bernie Tomic. He's also a bit of a soft touch when it comes to playing through injury. But anyway, back to Thanasi, powering through his first rounds of the Australian Open, and he came up against the resurgent, the evergreen, the great Brit pop of tennis, Andy Murray, at 35, after decades of being so close, if only, and just when he was hitting his straps and really coming into his own to win that breakout and breakthrough title on the ATP tour, all of a sudden his hip starts giving in on him, and then he just came back from that, and then COVID hit, and all of a sudden he finds himself at the age of 35 up against Tanasi Kokkinakis. I think it was the third round from memory, and apologies if I get some of these wrong, or I'm a bit off with my facts and figures, but we wanted to get this episode up quickly. But classy Tanasi and Andy Murray. And Andy Murray, you could say, after all those years of hip injuries and COVID, which has pretty much taken out 5 years of the back end of his career, well, he's due for more than a slice of luck, isn't he? And to be honest, we wouldn't begrudge him a title win this year. Well, guess what? His old man's hips nearly sent him into retirement, but not this year. They held him up until 4 in the morning against Tanasi, who has had his own injury battles over the years. We'll speak about that in a moment. But Andy Murray managed to outdo Tanasi Kokkinakis in a game that went till 4 in the morning. It's going to be one of those that are remembered. Now, we've had late night matches before. I remember Marcos, what was his name? The Cypriot. Starts with a B. Put it in the comments if you can if you can be bothered to help me out. But Andy Murray, there was a key game. Then they locked at was it 5-6 in the tiebreak or 6-7 in the tiebreak, and it was a key rally that lasted only about 20 seconds or 40 seconds from memory. I'd already fallen asleep by then, and knocked Tanasi Kokkinakis out of the Australian Open for this year. Now, the reason I was so interested in this match is because Kokkinakis has had his own injury battles over the years, and it turns out that one of the reasons for that is that he overdid it in the weights room. It was really the start of his injury troubles, that he was just lifting too much weights because he actually wanted to bulk up because he was more worried about how he looked on TV, and he's admitted this. I'm not talking out of school here. And turns out he was lifting weights not to improve his tennis, to improve the degree of his how photogenic he was, and that led to a whole run of injuries with his shoulder, his elbow, and then he's started compensating for a sore this and a sore that, and that led to knee and ankle issues. And poor old Tanasi, he's got as much talent to burn as his doubles partner, the human headline, box office Nick Kyrgios, but he's just had no luck. And it's great to see him back, and that's because he is an exceptional talent. And he did beat Roger Federer through those years of injury. Beat him at a tournament in Dubai, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago, when Roger was still plying his trade at a very decent level before he recently retired. And Tanasi, I can still remember him fronting up as a replacement partner. Was it for a Serena Williams or Venus Williams at the Hopman Cup in Perth, of all things, was the first time he came to our attention. But what a great highlight for week one, that match. Had us all on the edge of our seats, most of us on the edge of our beds, hoping that it'd wrap up with an Australian win, but no. For most of the Australian population that night, I'd say, we woke up the next morning, and unfortunately, poor old Tanasi was eliminated. It was the second round match. Murray powered on how many cups of coffee, we don't know, into the third round, and unfortunately he also was eliminated. And it's often no surprise, often it's very much the case at the Australian Open. If you feature in one of those night matches that goes, well into the early hours of the next day, finishing between 2 or 4 in the morning, as great as a win as that can be for any player that does power through those difficult hours for those crowds, you often find that the victor in the late night match that goes into the next morning often will lose their next game, because it's so hard to recover from an elite level Grand Slam tournament match, let alone backing up to a match like that. So it's a shame for Andy Murray that he didn't have the legs to run on, but it is pretty good, very good. We like seeing champions come through, and we hope that he's around next year, and wish him all the best. So for us, even though we say as a wrap-up for week one, that's a highlight, but as far as Kokkinakis goes, a little bit of a low light for us, because we like seeing the Australians do well. It was nice to see Jason Kubler fighting his way through. He's really establishing himself. Poor old Jordan Thompson, I think he bowed out in the first round. But Alexei Popyrin, we can't quite call him the breakout star of the Australian ranks, and John Millman, of course, also. It might be his last year after his defeat in the second round, I think it was. But we've got plenty to look forward to, because there's Rinky Hijitata, the Australian of Japanese heritage, the young fella there. And not too sure what Max Purcell was doing this year, and we haven't been following the doubles too closely of late. He's possibly in the doubles. And speaking of doubles, and we'll just have a quick comment on the Australian women, that Samantha Stosur, we lost Ash Barty to the ranks of the WTA. She retired. She's now expecting her first kid. Well done you, Ash. And Samantha Stosur, who is already a mother, is now officially retired from all levels of tennis, as she has been kicking around the Australian Open courts since 2008 that I know of. Might have even played 2007. She's been around for a very long time. A very, very professional player, very well liked. And that breakout win, her only Grand Slam win, defeating Serena Williams for a US Grand Slam title. What a fantastic match that was. So week one, that's week one wrapped up. And if you've got any highlights, any matches that you've enjoyed, or any personalities that you'd like to let us know about who caught your attention at the Australian Open 2023, well, tell us your story. It's all about stories on this platform, and we want to share them, and we also want to hear them. So don't be shy about putting down your thoughts in the comments below. And we appreciate the input, as always, from Carolyn B. And she was sad to see Tanasi eliminated, but well done to you, Carolyn, getting there on 3 days of the first week. I think she said that she was there 3 days, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and said she saw some great action. Shout out to you, Carolyn, that glad you enjoyed the day, and also that as far as Carolyn was concerned, Australian Open staff have done a really good job this year with some great outdoor entertainment facilities. They do, I agree, each year they seem to get a little bit better than the last year. And just locking on to Carolyn's story, she noted that Rafa, Kasparov and Berrettini being at it leaves the door open for a young gun to have a crack at the finals. Couldn't agree more, because we want to see those young players coming through. And this is a great segue. Carolyn's thoughts about Novak's, the Joker's hamstring. Is it going to prevent him playing at his brilliant best? Well, let's move into that topic for the next part of our episode. We're going to preview week two, because the Joker managed to get through his last game, managed to get through his last game, as quoted in the headlines, on 1.5 legs. And he was also, and Novak's not really known for commenting on, the times that players are expected to play, especially, for a person like himself. But he did actually put his hand up and say, they need to have a think about what time these games start. It's hard to back up, but come on, Novak, you get paid a lot of money, and there's a lot of people staying up late in Australia to enjoy your tennis, and we'll leave it at that. So that's the week 1 preview wrapped up, and we'll just take a short break, and we'll come back with a week 2 preview, and just focusing on one particular match. Can you guess what it is? G'day and welcome back to this next instalment of this current episode, this Australian Open Life. We tell stories, and our story is tennis, and the story is the Australian Open 2023, our week 2 preview. We're not going to go too far and wide here. We're going to focus on the last 16 of the men's draw, the ATP, and the match that all of Australia will be on tenterhooks about is the match between 23-year-old, I beg your pardon, Alex de Minaur, the Demon, who is ranked 24, come on, and he's up against the Djoker, who was deported last year, sent home packing after spending about 10 days in mandatory detention. We all know the story. Let's move on from that. So week 2 preview as far as this episode is concerned. I'm pretty sure they're playing tonight, Monday night, the 23rd of January 2023, and it's Alex de Minaur playing, and it's not his first time visiting the last 16 at all, but he has actually come out and stated, a little bit like Glenn McGrath before the first test in an Ashes series, he's actually named his rabbit. Alex de Minaur is far more humble than that. He's just set his goals that he wants to break into the back end of week 2 of Grand Slam tournaments from now on. He wants to take the next step. He wants to raise his ranking, get out of the 20s, get into the higher ranks in the top 10 and break through. So what can we expect from this match? It goes without saying that, geez, he's got his work cut out for him, hasn't he? As far as we're concerned, Alex de Minaur is a cracking player. He's a cracking kid. I still remember his first TV interview at his first Australian Open with John Fitzgerald, the former Davis Cup player and Davis Cup captain for Australia. Look, it's all up to the Demon now. He's been mentally up for these sort of matches ever since he debuted. He is a really, really tough nut to crack mentally, and his key attributes are his speed around the court and his return of serve. Now, he just needs to push through and execute his game. That's all it's got to be. He'll have that breakout Grand Slam week 2 performance. It's a goal that he's going to achieve. Come on, spit it out. Look, I think the Demon is every chance. Djokovic, the Joker, is you got to beware the wounded bull is the old cliche. But if you're ever going to front up in a Grand Slam for a breakout win against a top-ranked player, one of the best 4 that's ever been, never mind of the current players. Now would be a pretty good time to have a go at the Joker, to get into the last 8, into a semi-final, quarter-final, I beg your pardon. So if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would be putting my money on Alex de Minaur to get through past the Joker at pretty long odds, we've got to be honest, but we're not interested in examining the stats for the Joker, because we all know his game, we all know what he's capable of, we all know where he's coming from, and we all know how good he is. So let's tick off the Joker, done and dusted. Now, how on earth can de Minaur get past? Well, for those of you that have been with us for a while, you know that we like to drill down into certain stats. So we're going to look at Alex de Minaur's stats for 2022, the entire year. We're going to look at his break points percentages. And looking at his stats for the entire 2022, all games that he played in his singles record last year, he faced 463 break points, and he saved 63% of them, which is an extremely high amount. So it kind of makes you wonder. Why he hasn't done much better in terms of results. Now, if we look at his break points converted, he had 521 opportunities throughout 2022, but he only converted 44% of his break points. So is this the key stat that Minaur, imagine how much his results might improve if he can get that break points converted. That's when he's returning serve on a break point, when he's trying to win a game off an opponent. Imagine if he can increase that 44% to the 63% average of his break points saved. That's when he's facing a break of serve 63% of the time. His opponent doesn't break his serve. So if we just take that one stat in isolation, and yep, I'll put my hand up and say it's a long bow to draw, because there's many other things go into it, isn't there? But if you put this up against the Joker, and you're breaking the Joker you're breaking the serve of the Joker 63% of the time during the match, I reckon the Demon, Alex de Minaur, is a chance to win. So there you go. That's our prediction. de Minaur to come through, breaking serve and winning break points against the Joker, saving his own serve and getting through. He's a chance. I'm saying that he's every chance physically to get around the court and match it with the Joker. We all know how good the Joker is. So come on, Alex, tonight we want you to get through, and we want to see you in that quarterfinal. We want to see you in the semi-final. It's only 3 more games after the Joker, and maybe we can see an Australian male hold up the title for the first time since Mark Edmondson. Was it 1976? And do you know the interesting thing is that way out in November or December, late in 2022, box office Nick Kyrgios, and I'm pretty sure it was in the first week of January, before he pulled out of the United Cup. Nick, come on. He was saying himself that he could win the Australian Open. Well, if Nick believes he can win a Grand Slam tournament, you can bet your bottom dollar that Alex de Minaur does too. So that wraps up our Week 2 preview of the last 16 of the Australian Open 2023. Don't go away. We'll be right back with some final comments about this episode. G'day, welcome back to this Australian Open life. What a rant, what a rave. We tell stories, and our story is tennis. And we just wanted to say again a shout out and a thank you to all our new subscribers since March 2022 last year. Yep, all 20 of you. Thank you for joining us. And while 20 might not sound like a big number, obviously in the early days of this platform and this channel, and for what we do with this content, we really appreciate people coming along for the ride. But don't just ride in the back seat with your headphones on. Have a bit of a say. Drop your comments and join the conversation. And I've got to say again, a big shout out to Carolyn B. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your feedback, because often the feedback that I get from all of you often generates things to talk about, and that's what we want to have. It's conversation. It's not just about me getting up here ranting and raving and carrying on like a two-bob whatever. We want to have a conversation, because the Australian Open generates a lot of things to talk about, and even beyond the tennis, there's lots to talk about. And I'm not talking about who went out to what nightclub. It's also about the enjoyment we get out of going to the tennis. Personally, I enjoy going to the first 2 days of the tennis. I think they're the best value tickets. If you get a ground pass, you can wander around everywhere, the backcourts especially, and get a look at those players, especially in the qualifiers. who are trying to break through, to re-establish their form at the top level, or maybe they're trying to break through from the junior ranks, or maybe they're just hanging on for dear life on their last legs of their career. Now, an upcoming episode, I just want to point out, we've got a bit of a commentary about the qualifiers this year, and we've got a couple of things to say about that. And finally, if you've made it through this far, this episode, you've watched, you've listened, you've put up with my ranting and raving, well, thank you. And for those new subscribers, just wanted to give you a feel for the coverage that, the quality that we like to reach in general. This particular episode, not quite up to our usual standards, but we wanted to leave you a bit of a feel for those of you who are overseas, who've never ever been to Australia, let alone the Australian Open. If you were to come and put your hard-earned cash into an airfare and buy one of those tickets to a ground pass, or to get into Rod Laver Arena or John Cain Arena, or just simply enjoy being at the Australian Open, hopefully the footage that you've seen in this episode gives you a feel for it. And also the style of the content we put out. We've left up the old titles. Hopefully it's not too confusing. We did a preview last year of the Australian Open men's doubles finals. We got a bit excited about that because it was the first time for many decades that two sets of Australians on either side of the net faced each other for the title. And of course we had a lot to be excited about because it was our old mate, classy Tanasi Kokkinakis, and the human headline, box office Nick Kyrgios, faced off against Max Purcell and Matt Ebden, and the special case came through and wrapped up that title. And speaking of wrapping up, guess where we're heading now? We're heading for the exit. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We really enjoy having your company. We enjoy your feedback even more, and we enjoy having a conversation about this great tournament that kicks off the Grand Slam year. So you've been listening to the Bloke Who Walks. It's not just here online. You can also listen to our podcast, chiefly hosted on the ACast platform, but you can find it on many podcast platforms and services. And stick with us. We'll be continuing to put out content at various stages as we can. And thanks again. We really appreciate your patronage. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll chat to you soon. Hope you enjoyed that very rudimentary summary. I'm not going to pat myself on the back about the quality of this episode. It was really just about bringing together all those names of all those players, and just letting you know that that's where things are at, because we live in a digital age, but it's actually sometimes not that easy to find all this information. And the Christmas New Year's break, I mean, who wants to spend all their time looking at endless streams of apps and websites, and so let us do all the hard work for you. That's what we're here for. And it's so very much appreciated that we're finding out that from most of the viewers, whether it's by comments or likes or subscriptions, that this Australian Open Life is hitting the mark for you. You've been listening to The Bloke Who Walks. This was our Wildcards episode of the Spotlight series. Have a great new year. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat to you very soon. Bye for now. Based in Melbourne, Australia, this Australian Open Life is produced by Wise Words Media and Calendly Films.